Hi, Lisa. Welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here today to share with my audience.
Hi, Cheryl. It's nice to be here. I appreciate
Okay.
you inviting me.
Yes, yes. So I'm bringing on more guests on my show, and so I know you have some great background that you can provide to my listeners, particularly because of your travel agency background. But I wanted to kind of go back even further. And
Okay.
I know you mentioned that you have a degree in international travel, and I wanted to hear what made you want to pursue that? Like, where did that love for travel even start, I guess?
Oh, I was a child, fairly young, whenever I just always had a curiosity about other cultures, other places. I wanted to travel around the world. I still do. So it's always been a passion of mine. So that's why I chose travel to get a degree in so that I could help other people have the kind of passion for travel that I did to help them make their dreams come true.
Awesome. Yes. So did you travel a lot as a child? You sounds like you may have. As you said you had
Actually, I
that.
didn't. I
No,
think
you
that's
didn't.
probably what was part of my passion is because I didn't get an opportunity to travel when I was a child. So um, I moved to Hawaii when I was 18 and loved it, still do. And that just kind of is where it all began. A
Okay.
dream.
A dream.
Yeah.
A dream. Yes, that's usually where it all begins. So after your degree, it sounds like you became a travel agent. So tell me about your time as a travel agent.
Wow. Yeah, like it was exciting, fun. Um, I loved helping other people travel, but I got to travel quite a bit myself. So, um, yeah, as every chance I got, I was booking a travel destination for me to explore whenever I had free tickets or I had points. Whenever I could, I would go.
And I'm sure that helped with you as an agent to be able to, tell people about a place because you've actually experienced it.
Because I did most of it solo, so I was able to really help them learn how to navigate traveling in
Mm,
places, even places that normally people wouldn't go. Um, but mostly it was just, the excitement of the destinations and being able to give them my feedback of my personal travels that helped my clients the most.
yes, for sure. What has been, when you've booked travel for other people, what has been the most, I don't want to say exotic, but most interesting or place that you've helped someone book?
Well, I did mission travel for groups. I did groups, corporate, and individual. So I think Honduras was one of the spots that I did the most groups in, and they did travel to impoverished areas so that they could build housing. So that was extremely rewarding and interesting. And then I had on the other end, I had a client that loved to travel around the world. And she didn't want to take a tour around the world. She wanted to fly to each destination and do it individually. And so I was booking trips to far remote places in Indonesia for her. So
Wow.
yeah,
Yes.
it was amazing.
And did she give you some stories when she came back?
Yes, I saw a few. She did.
Oh, okay. Yes. Awesome. So you've traveled a lot, and you've helped a lot of people, and you said the Honduras thing was really rewarding. Were there other, I guess, when you've helped people, have they come back to kind of share with you, you know, what impact or thank you maybe for what you did that you kind of got that little reward, like
I did.
encouragement, I guess, for like,
Yes, they were kind enough to send me gifts and cards, and
oh,
I had a huge crate of oranges to gift cards, and some would take me out to dinner. They were very grateful. It was nice to be able to sit and have dinner with someone that just got back from a trip that I had booked and hear all the wonderful shares, the happy moments that they
yeah,
had. And
yeah.
I also helped people who were grieving. overcome the loss of a partner, taking a trip that their partner and they had decided to do, but the partner passed before the trip. So it was very rewarding to help them book the trip and help them to go to the destination and grieve and be able to feel fulfilled in that destination.
That's
Yeah.
important.
Yes, it was.
That's amazing. I think a lot of not just, like you said, maybe it was a trip they had planned as, a couple and their partner wasn't able to make it. But, I see travel as a way, like you said, to use it as sort of a way to heal maybe from those hurts or grieve, have that time of grieving. What are some other examples where you have seen travel be used in more of a healing way?
Well, it was also to help people who had just broken up and they needed to travel to get away and collect themselves to do personal growth on their journey. Some went to India, others went to other destinations, and that was wonderful. I myself did a lot of solo travel, so I understood that travel can actually help you in your personal growth.
Mm-hmm.
For me, anyway, it was. So that's very personal. The journey into yourself to know yourself better.
How did you help those people decide where was the best place for them to go, right? Maybe under those circumstances, or did they come to you and kind of have an idea of where they wanted to go to do the healing?
A little both, but mostly it takes really good listening skills. If you sit and talk with a prospective client for a while and ask them about their dreams and their ambitions, and if they had, any place in the world that they'd like to go, where would it be? And how could I make that happen? It's fairly easy if you're a good listener to help them find the spot.
So it's almost like you feel like the fairy godmother where you can
But
when you're planning the trip, you can wave your magic wand and send them off somewhere.
exactly. Well, then that's
Yeah.
why I got into the travel industry to begin with, to create magic for people.
Oh.
Yeah.
What has been your personal favorite trip that you've taken?
Oh, it's really hard to say. So I went to Tucson to do a fire walk, and that was incredibly
Oh, wow.
memorable, right?
Yes.
Life-changing. Actually did do the fire walk. So that one will always be in my mind as a very profound trip. But it's torn between St. Lucia and Antigua in the Caribbean. Both places are quite amazing, but very different. And I enjoyed both thoroughly.
Why did you enjoy them? What made them special?
It's like going into another world. St. Lucia was incredible. I stayed at a resort that had 3 walls and 1 open wall out into the
Oh,
Caribbean, and you got to see the pitons, and it had a private pool and a 4-poster bed, and it was just something that came out of a fairy tale. And yeah, it's hard to top that. It really is. It's hard to top that.
and you said that was St. Lucia that had that.
St. Lucia.
Okay.
And it was very different in the way that I stayed at a resort there that was all inclusive, but it was for tennis pros. It was a 6-star actually.
Wow.
Yeah. So I had gold fixtures, a bidet, I had a private balcony. So it was the 2 different worlds altogether, right?
Yeah.
Sunsets in Antigua were just so incredible. You can't describe them.
Hmm.
You
Well,
can't.
and pictures never do any sunrise
Oh,
or sunset any kind of justice, in my opinion. You just have to experience them, right? You have to be there.
experience them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. So you are currently, I think you said you're not doing travel as far as a travel agent, right, anymore.
I am not. When Priceline.com came over and then people started doing their own booking, it was a little bit more difficult
Mm.
to make a
Mm.
living in travel, since lots of people wanted to take control of their own travel. So I'm a life coach right
Your
now.
life coach. Okay. Do you ever, in your life coaching, when you're coaching somebody, I'm sure does travel come up as far as something a tool to utilize, in sort of their lives?
It actually does. Visualization is a big part of what I do. And so going to a place that you've only dreamed of, or maybe you went and it's your favorite place in the entire world, can be very helpful as far as calming the nervous system, um, creating adventure in your life. So I think that it did help me all those years that I was in travel
Mm-hmm.
to help as a life coach.
Yeah, I see it as a great tool, like you said, for life coaching and that visualization. Like for me, I will visualize, that next place I want to go to, right? And, it kind of keeps me going, like through the
It
day to
does.
day, you just
Mhm.
kind of, you have something to look forward to, something to anticipate. And even if it's far off, right? That it's kind of keeps your hopes up and, you know, maybe even take some action steps to start planning, right?
It
It's
does,
yeah.
actually. It does. It creates hope. It creates dopamine in the brain.
Yes, yes, I
Feel this
was reading
thing.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very helpful, actually.
Awesome. Well, tell me about a trip that you took that was not so great, maybe, but your expectations or your hope was, obviously something different. But I mean, before you share, I know that a lot of trips that I've taken that maybe were disappointing or not what I expected, in a way, end up being pretty memorable because of that. So I don't know if you have one to share that maybe just didn't go as planned, right? But it still holds a place in your memory.
Oh, absolutely. I traveled to the UK. I flew into London, stayed there for a few nights. It was a bit, it wasn't disappointing, but it was a bit overwhelming, even as a travel agent and someone that had the skills that I did. There were some things that I wasn't prepared for, like getting lost in London. I ended up in a wonderful place and I got to see the Globe Theater and watch a little bit of a play and learn about history, but it wasn't where I set off
Mm-hmm.
that morning. And I didn't get to go to Stonehenge. So, I mean, and then I traveled up to Scotland to see the Loch Ness, and that was amazing, but I missed the tour. I had to pick another one. So, yeah. And then on the way back, I had bought a teapot because I love to collect unique teapots. And I
Mm-hmm.
was on the train back to Manchester from Inverness, and I was being hurried to get off the train. They don't give you very long. A lot. I left my teapot under the seat. So
Oh, goodness.
was some disappointing aspects, but yeah, it's still a wonderful trip, right? That's the
Yeah.
thing with travel. You got to see things that you never thought you would see, and things didn't turn out the way, but it still turned out wonderful.
Right. I
Mhm.
appreciate you sharing that because I think a lot of times we look at travel and we just see the beautiful Instagram kind of think it's all going to be, picturesque and perfect every time. But,
Everything's
I've,
and
yes, things happen and they don't ever go as the way you plan. And I think, I know for me, I've learned to definitely go with the flow and to look at those mishaps, I guess, or wrong turns or getting lost. I've gotten lost many times too. And some of them have turned out rather surprisingly well. My son today just reminded me of a wrong turn we took in Ireland last year.
Mhm.
And we happened upon this beautiful, it was a chocolate factory.
Oh
Um,
wow.
like it was tucked away like in these little, and we would never have found it, never have stumbled upon it if we hadn't taken that wrong turn. So I think it's definitely important that as travelers, we understand that there's, it's not all, you know, sugar and spice and everything nice. It's, there's going to be times when, and I think going with the flow is part of learning to enjoy the journey.
And I agree. And I think that sometimes what lies ahead of us is far better than what we may have taken if we had just taken the path that most travelers take. Sometimes
Yes.
getting off the beaten path can be wonderful. And you
Right.
stumble on some, like I would have never gone to the Globe Theater. If I hadn't got lost in London, I would have never.
Right.
Yeah. So it's amazing actually. Well, you know, and I think it's really important when you travel to have that in mind.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
you
to be
definitely have to have that mindset. Yeah.
absolutely, and to be savvy enough and confident enough that you can find a way through whatever shows up.
What have you said to obviously when you were a travel agent, you had people come to you and have you were helping them book their travel, and maybe they were lacking some confidence to do things on their own. Was there any kind of advice you would offer them?
I did. I actually tell them to prepare ahead of time. Like it's really good to do it before you leave or as soon as you get to your destination, of resources that you can call if something happens, especially if you're in a different country, most especially. So you need to know where the consulate is. You need to know how to contact the travel and tourist bureau. You need to know how to contact the hotel or anywhere that you might be staying. Have that with you handy
Hmm.
and place it somewhere, usually where something, if it gets stolen, is not going to be with it.
That's a good point.
So to prepare, like, you know, wear body wallets and all the things because you're going into a different country. You just never know. And it's always best to be prepared just in case. And that way you can relax more when you're there because you already put those in place to take care of yourself if something does happen.
Yes. I agree with that advice. Yeah, I always say prepare, just like a, Boy Scout, right? I guess. But yes, that is very important advice. Um, if you could only go, I've been asking this question quite a bit because someone asked me and I was a little stumped. So I'm like, oh, I'm gonna flip it on my people, right? So
Okay.
if you could only go one more place, you could only travel to one more place in your life,
Mhm.
where would that be?
Iceland.
Oh, have you been there before?
Love it. Yeah, I've been studying Iceland for some time now, and then COVID hit, and you know, personal stuff happening. So Iceland, absolutely.
Iceland.
Oh, it's breathtaking. I can't even imagine. Yeah,
Is that what attracts you to it? Is all the wonderful scenery that you've seen pictures of,
the culture,
the
the
culture?
government.
Oh, okay.
Uh, yeah, so much about it.
So
So,
you really do, when you go somewhere, you sounds like you really do your research
oh,
as far
absolutely.
as that country
Paramount.
and
You need to know what you're headed into.
yes.
Because even if you're traveling to a 6-star resort in Antigua, right?
Mhm.
Where everything's taken care of, things can happen.
Mhm.
And see, for me, part of travel is learning the culture to which I'm traveling to, try to understand the people. Um, yeah, their traditions, the culture, what makes it so special.
Has there been a place that you've gone where you find yourself very ingrained in the culture, whether it's planned or, unplanned? Do you have an example of, kind of really being, I guess, in the heart of the culture wherever you're traveling to?
Actually, when I traveled to St. Lucia,
Okay.
and I was very new as a travel agent. So I didn't do as much research as I do now because I was still on the learning curve. And I did have a rental car, but I didn't know that they drove so fast and, pardon the expression, recklessly. It's far more than my American talents could handle. So, yeah, the nicer restaurants were a good drive away, and so I actually got to learn about the culture, the food, the people that weren't part of the tourist attractions.
Yes. Yeah.
And I wouldn't have changed it for anything in the world. And then I ended up hiring a local young man to take me to the rainforest and be my tour guide. And
Yes.
so I got to talk to him for an hour and a half about
Mm-hmm.
what it's to live in St. Lucia. So it was quite amazing. I have this innate sense of curiosity about life in general. And so wherever I go, I want to learn.
Mm-hmm. I find that if you're truly I say traveler, not a tourist, I think that's a trait that a lot of us have, that we have this curiosity of, seeing new things, other cultures and stuff like that. So, well, I was actually just going to, have you share about what you're doing right now in your life. And you said you're doing some coaching, so maybe you can share a little bit about that. And then where my folks can possibly find you.
Thank you for asking. So I'm a life coach that focuses on cognitive behavioral therapy. I've been doing that for many, many years. So I help people develop conscious relationships, conscious communication. I love it. I'm a writer as well. So you can find me at consciouslyawake.counseling.com or Facebook Lisa Hawkins Dating and Relationship Coach.
Okay. I'll make sure I include those in the notes, the podcast notes, so that people can find you more easily. But Lisa, you've shared some wonderful stories. And I think coming from a travel agent background, I think you had a lot of, different insight than I think, people that have maybe just traveled and not had that experience in the travel industry. So thank you again for bringing that information, that wealth of history into the conversation today. And I appreciate your
Sure.
time.
It's my
Yes.
pleasure. Thank you
Yes.
for having me.
Thank you, Lisa.